Welcome to EdUp Curriculum. I am your host, Nicole Poff, and today I am joined by Dr. Eric Klein. I'm really excited. I chatted with Eric. I've known him for a while, but I chatted with him back in the beginning of the year about some of his work with his doctoral programs, and I know that that's a hot space right now. So I'm grateful, Eric, that you're on with us today. If you could just introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure, Nicole. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I've been really excited and looking forward to it for quite some time. And yeah, we got to see each other at, I think it was the last OLC Innovate conference. And like I said, thanks again for having me. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I am currently the assistant provost of doctoral research and student success at American College of Education, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that role and about ACE throughout the course of the interview. But I've been in higher ed for a good number of years. I started out my career as a psychologist in a college counseling center at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. I got my doctoral degree in clinical psychology from Fairleigh Dickinson University. So started my career in student affairs, but fell in love with academics and teaching once I started teaching on an adjunct basis. I then found myself where we met at Ashford University, where I served in many roles. I was a program chair of psychology in the undergraduate program. I was a department chair. I was an associate dean. And then in my last role, I was the dean of the Honors College at Ashford. And I was at Ashford in total from 2012 to 2019 for about 7.5 years. And then I left to go take on a dean role, and then eventually an associate vice chancellor role at a community college district where I live in here in San Diego. And then just about a year and a half ago, I came across this opportunity at ACE, and it's been absolutely wonderful. And yeah, excited to share more about it. And thanks again for having me.
Of course, and thank you for being here. I am big fan of ACE. Everyone that I talk to that's at A, I just love what you guys are doing. The low cost, the no financial aid. Like I think it's such a good service. But more than that, every person that I talk to at ACE loves ACE. And I think that's really rare to find a space where just every person you talk to is 1000% committed.
Isn't it incredible? I found that too. I still think about. It's funny. I still think about my initial screening interview when I applied and interviewed at ACE, and I asked the person from HR, "What is it about ACE for you that?" And she kind of commented on the same thing, and also remarked that the culture is incredibly positive. It feels like a family. She at the time, and she's still at ACE, but she couldn't imagine leaving it, and nor could I. I mean, it's a wonderful place to work. The mission is terrific, as you pointed out, around high quality, affordable, accessible, and innovative education. And there's just a real shared commitment and dedication to student centeredness and to student success. We have a really high student retention rate, a real commitment to seeing students graduate without debt. We haven't increased tuition since 2016. And there's just yeah, it's been a wonderful place to work.
Yeah, I love watching the growth. You guys are doing cool things with partnering with other college. I feel like they just keep popping up on my LinkedIn, right? Like now we're partnered. I think yesterday was at Dallas
Mhm.
College, I think is the
Right.
newest.
Yeah.
Um yeah,
Yeah.
just you guys are doing cool things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, enrollment is pretty much doubled in the last 5 years, and we're continuing to see steady growth. And for me, overseeing doctoral research, it's one of the exciting opportunities and challenges, which is how to set ourselves up to be successful uh, given that growth. Ensuring that even on the faculty and staff side, that our processes are efficient, that we can scale effectively, and yet that we still provide the same high quality, personalized, high touch um, teaching, learning, and service that we do even when we're a little bit smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys are doing it really well. But let's talk about doctoral
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people right now sunsetting doctoral or pausing doctoral. There's also a lot of people launching doctoral. Like it's
Mhm.
kind of all over the place right now.
Yeah.
Um, and when we at OLC, you gave a presentation kind of about this redesign of your doctoral
Mm-hmm.
program. And when I saw the map, which I'm sad we can't really show what you showed at OLC, which was a beautiful visual of kind of the journey your doctoral students go through, I thought, this makes a lot of sense. Like, why do more schools not do it this way? So walk us kind of through, like, walk us through it. What does that look
Yeah.
like at ACE, the doctoral? How much of a role did you play in this? How did you reimagine the journey of the doctoral student?
Yeah. Well, thanks. I have to give my predecessors credit because they envisioned, much of it. Um, and just for a little bit of background and context, so ACE offers 8 different doctoral EdD programs, primarily in education. Um, and where my role and my team come in is essentially in the dissertation phase. So we've got those 8 programs, and typically students will start with their core content courses. So if you're getting your EdD and curriculum instruction, you're taking courses in that area, or if you're taking you're getting your EdD in nursing education, you're taking discipline specific courses in that area. But then you come to the point and phase of when it gets time to do your dissertation. And if it's okay with you, I want to share a little bit about my own kind of
Yeah,
background and experience, because I think in part it really informed or informed some of my thinking and belief. And um, as a doctoral student, I mean, dissertation is hard. It's really, really hard. I was really fortunate. I was basically afforded the opportunity that I could dedicate. I was a full time doctoral student. I didn't have a job. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married yet. Um, I'd gotten right into my doctoral program out of my bachelor's program, but so in a sense, like it was I was able to commit my full time energy to working
yeah,
on my dissertation, and so that was really advantageous. Some of my colleagues, didn't have that, um, and one of the things that was lacking in my experience was there weren't a lot of supports in place. I was fortunate; I had a really supportive chair of my dissertation, and he advised me on how to select committee members. And so I had a team that was supportive and engaged. Some of my colleagues weren't as fortunate, but there also weren't necessarily resources in place. And I think about one of my uh, friends at the time who had real anxiety throughout the course of his dissertation, and actually didn't wasn't able to complete it. He had done all
mm,
his coursework, but basically developed writer's block and real intense anxiety, um, and left the program. And seeing that kind of left a kind of a mark and impact on me. So I fast forward to this role, and with my team, we talk all the time about what can we do to support students, to retain them, to ensure they're successful. When they're stuck, how can we help them get unstuck? Um, the majority of our students are adult learners in their 30s and 40s, 50s. Um, they're in relationships. They've got children. They've got grandchildren. Um, they've got jobs. They've got multitude other responsibilities and interests. And um, so, with all that said, and just the inherent difficulty of doing a dissertation, a lot of our focus again is how can we support and retain students and ensure they're successful. One of the things that's really unique and different about our model at ACE, and again, this preceded me, and so I give my predecessors a lot of credit. When I was in graduate school, and I think the traditional model is you're a little bit on an island when you work on your dissertation. You've got your chair and your committee, and you take however long it takes. I mean, you if it takes you a year, it takes you a year. If it takes you 3 years, it takes you 3 years. But you kind of just work with your committee over here on the side, and whenever you're done, you're done. Uh, at ACE, we have a different model. While each student has a dissertation chair and a committee member, they take courses that are basically designed for each phase of the process. So there's a literature review course, there's a methodology course, and those are 10-week courses, and they're really designed to keep students moving through the process. And each of those courses has experts in those areas. So, expert in literature review, expert in methodology, and really, essentially, what that does is that keeps the student, on task and moving forward. And it's not to say that sometimes it might not take a student a little bit longer, or they might have to repeat a certain section. But it kind of keeps them moving and feeling supported. And then, as we talked about at OLC, we have a number of additional, supports. We've got boot camp faculty. We have editors in house. We do checkpoint meetings. So at the start of every term and at the midpoint of every term, we meet with students and check in on their progress and how they're doing, and how we can support them. We have a coach within our department. It's a research and dissertation coach who just brings expertise into, if you're feeling stuck, how can we get you unstuck? So, and I give the faculty, our faculty, so much credit. They're just so committed, so dedicated. They take so much pride in seeing our students succeed, and there really is nothing better than participating in a student's dissertation defense and calling them doctor at the end. So yeah, that's a little bit about our setup and our program. I'm super proud of it, and yeah, just really thrilled to be part of it as well.
What I love about it, I'm a doctoral student. I don't know if you knew this. I'm a doctoral student right now. So everything you say, I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah,
Luckily, similarly to you, I have a really good faculty advisor. She kind of tells me where the landmines are.
so, so critical.
Critical, critical. And she takes into consideration my work schedule. So she's like, you're going to be busy for work. So let's take these courses here. And then over the summer, when you're not as busy, let's take these courses. I mean, just literally factors in my life and helps me navigate, even down to, okay, you have a couple qualitative options. Which one is going to be best for you? I wouldn't be able to pick that out if I'm just looking at a course catalog. There's no way I'd be able to know this is the qualitative that I should take because I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And similarly, she's really put the time in, like, we need to be careful about your committee and making sure that they all work well together and that they don't, that they play nice in the sandbox together. So I've gotten very luckily just because my
Yeah.
advisor a very good experience. Now I can't say that everyone at my institution has had the same because their faculty plays such a big role, but it sounds like you have put there's safeguards here that make it to where it doesn't rely just on how good an advisor is. There's safeguards that even if, and again, faculty is great, but even if a student gets a different level of engagement from their faculty, the safeguards that exist at ACE ensure that your doctoral candidates will get the support they need.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm so glad, first of all, to hear that you're having that experience. By the way, I'm here to support you in any way I can.
Oh,
So
thank you.
please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I think back to my own experience and the two pieces of advice that my advisor and chair gave me, which were immensely helpful. The first was when you select a dissertation topic, select something that's doable and realistically achievable. And you may have a dream research study, something extremely aspirational in mind. Save that for when you're a tenured faculty member, or when when you're set up and you have more time and more resources. But for the purpose of doing a dissertation, do something that's really that's realistic, that's achievable, where you won't have too many hurdles in terms of data collection. You don't necessarily want to give IRB reasons to kind of ask questions about why is it you're doing what you're doing. So to do something relatively, again, doable, and that's one area that we coach students. And relatedly, and it wasn't necessarily a popular decision, but we recently kind of scaled down the number of methodologies that we are allowing students to do, just for that very reason, that we want to make sure that they're doable, that we want to make sure that we have the expertise on the faculty side to support them. And so sometimes it's as an administrator and for the faculty, it's kind of scaling back some of the complexity, to help students succeed. But you're absolutely right. And then the other thing that we do um, is we don't encourage students to be switching dissertation chairs and committee members necessarily. However, sometimes a relationship is just not the right fit, and so we don't necessarily discourage it either. So for our doctoral students who, for whatever reason, they just don't feel supported, it's just not the right relationship for them, uh, there's a pretty easy process for them to request a different chair or different committee, and we give our faculty the same encouragement and permission. Sometimes they're working with a student and it's just not the right relationship, it's just not the right fit. It's not to say they don't care about the student or they don't want them to succeed, but maybe just the advice, the suggestions are just not getting through, and the student's not persisting at the way we would otherwise would like them to. And so it's in a similar way, there's no ego involved, and just to say, what, this is not the right relationship. I recommend the student have a different advisor. It might be someone with a different background, different experience level, different temperament, whatever it might be, but all within the end goal of helping the student succeed and finish.
That's awesome. How do you guys match up the student and their advisor, their
Yeah,
chair?
for the chair, yeah. Sometimes students will request someone based on an experience they've had. They've had a wonderful instructor. That's not an uncommon way. Um, but what we do each term actually is we reach out to our pool of faculty. We ask them to update their interests, their experience, both in terms of their discipline experience as well as their research methodology experience. To your point earlier, some folks are maybe really comfortable with doing qualitative research, but not quantitative, or some may have a real passion for doing case studies and others may not. So we really assess our faculty's interest, their expertise, as well as their capacity. There might be a term where a faculty member has the ability to take on, say, three more students. Another term, they're at max capacity and they can't take anyone on. So, we really, from the faculty side, we really want to ensure that our faculty are as busy as they want to be, but they're not overwhelmed. They're not at over capacity such that they can't provide the support to students that's needed. And we'll ask students too um, about their preferences, and sometimes they're not sure, and so we kind of just take all those variables together and try to match students, and sometimes we have faculty that work well together. So try to match faculty who we know have good collaboration and experience in certain methodology and certain topics, and pair them, and then they move forward.
That's awesome. Yeah, I picked my faculty actually when I applied. It was kind of interesting. It was like, which faculty member do you want? And I'm like, I've never been to the school, so I don't know which faculty member I want because I haven't been a student yet. So then I went on LinkedIn and I searched every faculty member that I could find on the website. And I was like, oh, this is a K through 12 person. I probably don't want them. And then finally, when I found like higher ed people, then I started narrowing down, okay, what had they written about? But it was a lot of investigation on my end for never starting the program before. And
Totally.
somehow I picked correctly, but the amount
Yeah.
of work that, so it would have been nice to have a little bit more of a match selection on the university side.
Yeah. I Oh, 100%. I'm thinking back to my experience, and I don't. So I started graduate school in 2003. I don't know if there were online doctoral programs at that time. There
Hmm.
may have been. Um, my interest was in. I knew I wanted to do a clinical psychology program. My interest was in issues of men and masculinity at the time. And what I was advised to do was to reach out to professors in doctoral programs who had that same interest, and ask if they had room in their labs to take on, because some programs only took on one student, two students, three, 10,
Hmm.
whatever it might be. So Nicole, I think I reached out to, like, again, blindly. I never met them at an I think on email I probably reached out to about 30 or so
Wow.
professors in different programs, and only two wrote back. One was a professor in Chicago, and another was a professor in New Jersey, at Fairleigh Dickinson, which is where I lived. I went to school at an undergraduate institution in New Jersey, and he had invited me to, hey, why don't you come? You're close by. Why don't you come by my office? Um, I did that. I was incredibly nervous, beyond
I bet.
nervous, and I remember, like, he could tell, and I remember him saying, take a deep breath, relax. You're good. Um, and we clicked, and I knew that right then that was where I wanted to go, um, and so you're right, and I think so. Particularly for online programs, it's how do you make that similar assessment, and how do you kind of engage um, to the point where you feel like you're making a good choice. That's something for institutions to consider, and I'm really, I think back to our faculty and our administrative team. They do a great job of connecting with students, and we like to give a menu of options around that connection. So it's like, would you like to talk on the phone? Would you like to talk on email? Is Zoom good for you? And we kind of lean into the students' preference and availability. Sometimes it's at night, sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's on their work break, whatever it might be. But really, try to meet students where they are.
I feel like that's what you have to do now. I'm actually an on-ground campus student. Like I go to school on ground with some online classes, but most of the time I meet my advisor on Zoom because
Mhm.
it's like I have kids and I work and all the life things. And so not having
Yeah,
those boundaries of like you must meet on campus
yeah,
is really the only way I'd be able to do this.
yeah. There was a switch for me in that when I was so at my last place, I was a dean at Grossmont College at the
Hmm.
time, and we had um, a policy in place that, for this one type of student request, the student would have to come in and meet with someone in my department in person. And I'll just never forget, the student had called and said, "No, I'd like to do this over the phone. Like, I don't understand why I have to come in." This was after the pandemic, where um, we've been a little bit more accustomed to doing things virtually, particularly at a community college. And I was talking with the person on the phone, and basically she said, "Look, I work at Target. I'm on my break. I've got all these family responsibilities. I've got kids to feed at home. I've got different things to do. It's really impractical for me to drive to campus. Can't we just handle this over the phone? And just the way she articulated it, even though it wasn't our typical process, I was like, yeah, you're right. We
Sounds
should.
reasonable. Yeah.
And so we started making some changes just to be more flexible in that regard, and it's good. It's nice to see that when institutions are meeting students where they are, and just and recognizing all the different things that students have going on in their lives, and how can we truly be student centered if we're putting up barriers and roadblocks and things like that.
Totally. I read somewhere like we're gonna have to drop the term non-traditional learners soon because the
Yeah,
the non-traditional learner is actually now the traditional learner.
that's
Like
right.
we've
That's right.
flipped that model. So
Yeah,
it's good to see schools adapting.
yeah,
Something that when you were presenting at OLC, you touched on it for a quick second was this boot camps.
yes,
And again, as a doctoral student, I know that there's little pockets where I'm like, I just need a little bit of extra support here. So
yeah,
talk about your guys' boot camps that are
yeah,
available for students.
yeah. So you're right. It's some of our students need just that little bit of extra scholarly writing support, or just that little bit of extra individualized coaching, and that's where our boot camps come in. And interestingly enough, we're having some conversations around our boot camp and listening to our students, because some students have said, while I later found the coaching valuable and the feedback valuable and the additional support valuable, it wasn't a good feeling for me to be requested to go into a boot camp. It almost felt like a negative.
Hmm.
And so it's just wonderful feedback. And so we've been talking about, you know, how do we reimagine it? How do we reframe it? We want to continue to provide that personalized, customized support when students aren't successful in their first or perhaps even second attempt in a dissertation course. What can we offer students that feels better
Yeah.
than that? But really, it's about that personalized support. Students sometimes they're unsuccessful in courses for different reasons. For some, it's about their writing. For others, it's sometimes it's just about time management techniques. Um, for some, it's just other just quick tips and ideas. And so we'll have some students who engage just a little bit of time in that boot camp, and they get the help they're needed, and then they move on. For others, it's a bit more intensive, but it really is, because it's not a one size fits all. So it really is trying to find that personalized, customized support for students.
That's really interesting that the term boot camp is perceived as negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what could
Mm-hmm.
you like? That's good feedback because you're like,
Yeah,
this is not a punishment. This is truly designed to support you. So if it's felt like a
yeah,
punishment,
e-
that's great feedback. What
exactly.
what is the format of the boot camp? So like, is it a certain length of time? Is it
Yeah,
asynchronous, synchronous?
yeah, they're asynchronous, and we encourage students to do the boot camp while they're redoing whichever course they weren't successful in. So we'll just use literature review as an example. So student sets out to complete their literature review in the 10 weeks in the 10-week course, and for whatever reason they just don't get it done. And by the way, it's hard to do to get a literature review done in 10 weeks. So they have the option to go into a boot camp. Um, and by the way, it's funny because our boot camp faculty are tremendously popular, and
Hmm.
they're often the ones that are suggested around, can this person be my dissertation chair, or at the least can this person be on my committee, because they find them to be so supportive, encouraging, engaged, and they do a tremendous job of providing just that personalized support. So in response to your question, everything we do at ACE is asynchronous. But that's not to say that our faculty aren't offering office hours, that they're not offering to meet with students all the time at designated times. And for some students, their preference is, no, I'd like to continue to just email is the best mode of communication for me. For others, it's, oh, if we can meet weekly to keep me accountable and keep me moving, that's the best thing. But essentially, students will stay in the boot camp until they finish whatever section that they kind of got hung up on, and then they're out of it. But like I said, again, they're often make such a connection with the bootcamp faculty that they want that faculty member to continue to be engaged with them through the remainder of their experience, and we try to accommodate that when we can.
That makes sense because you talked earlier about like getting unstuck, right? If a student's
Mhm.
stuck and then they're stuck in a course and they see this person as the reason they got unstuck,
Yeah,
you're like, yeah,
yeah,
I want you on my team. I'm
yeah,
about to face this huge challenge.
yeah.
And now, Eric, I think it's interesting that you and your team support what's traditionally the part where we see doctoral students stop, right? There's a lot of ABDs. There's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Many, many, many people complete their coursework and then
Yep.
it's that last dessert. So you and your team have a unique challenge where you are tasked with literally getting them statistically
Hmm.
where everyone drops, right? Like
Yeah.
this is a big challenge. If you're on the front end, you're the
Yeah.
coursework, a little bit easier, but you guys have the hardest
That
spot.
that's our department in a nutshell, and we love it. We really um, we're committed to supporting students at that phase, and we think it's advantageous actually to have a department and to have designated dissertation faculty and coordinators and a coach. We have a director of doctoral research who's really focused on the operational elements and scaling back some of the complexity, really just so that faculty can focus on supporting their students and the students can focus on what they need to do to progress in their dissertation. So um, we talk all the time about. I mean, it's kind of neat that we can just really focus on. We meet these students at this phase, and um, how can we help them get across the finish line, and also talk all the time about continuous opportunities for improvement in what we do and how we support students, and um, it's fun. It's fun, and as I mentioned, we've been growing. So we've been hiring more faculty. We've been talking about ways that we can grow and scale effectively and efficiently, but yet still provide that customized, personalized, support. And I view our team; they're retention specialists, and they want to see all of our students, every one of them, cross the finish line, and we don't want to lose students, particularly at this ABD phase, as you mentioned. So we're really we're all in.
I mean, the model makes so much sense. And I think in theory, a lot of schools say like, "Oh, we have a dissertation team, right?" Or but I think the infrastructure that you guys have built to actually support students through this looks a lot different than what it looks at other institutions. Like I know that at
Yeah.
my school, I don't have a set team. It's
Right.
like, okay, you got through this part. Now let's go. Let's
Mm-hmm.
let's cross this finish line. We are here to just laser focus on this very specific point of time.
Yeah.
Again, in which we know the likelihood that someone is going to drop with you guys, not with you guys, but in this process of the degree
Yep.
is pretty high.
Yep.
So this is a very big challenge for your team. And it kind of brings me to like a bigger question, which is just doctoral studies and online learning, which you kind of touched on before. Like it's still fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, traditionally in the past you would have the campus resources.
Yeah.
Where do you see the opportunity for online schools who are either looking to start a doctoral program or try to make improvements with their
Mhm.
existing programs? Where do you see opportunity, just kind of looking at the overall education landscape?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think one big and continually emerging area of opportunity for all institutions to consider is around technology, and the intersection of, you can even keep it specific to doctoral writing and technology. And I think about artificial intelligence tools, chat GPT, copilot, where do they come into play? We're excited about this. We just recently at ACE, we're partnering with Grammarly.
Hmm.
So we are providing institutional license for students, faculty, staff, all employees to have access to Grammarly to help improve their writing, their grammar, streamline some of the work that they do. Um, coincidentally, I met someone on a external task force that I advise on, but we were talking. She has some background in how to utilize tools like Grammarly, ChatGPT um, to make dissertation work a little bit easier, but in a of course in an appropriate in
Mhm.
appropriate ethical ways. And I think similarly for our dissertation faculty, how can they use tools like ChatGPT and Grammarly to help um, with coaching, with editing, and so I think technology is a big one. Um, I think for institutions to build pathways that make sense to doctoral programs, just as an example, if there's an opportunity for institutions to offer doctoral credits in master's programs.
Hmm.
So I'll use again curriculum instruction as an example. If you're a master's student in curriculum instruction, and you could take courses that provide doctoral credit, hypothetically you can then transition into your doctoral program with fewer remaining credits to take,
Yeah.
which makes it more affordable, more accelerated. I think um, that's really attractive. And I think about too, and you had mentioned earlier, and I appreciate what you said about ACE and some of the ways that ACE is different than other institutions. Because it's a crowded landscape in higher
Mhm.
education, and there's some indication that between the demographic cliff and other things that overall enrollments could potentially be trending downward. And so how do institutions differentiate uh, themselves? And I'm super happy for you that you've found it sounds like a wonderful doctoral program where you're supported, and I have no doubt you'll be successful. But I think it's going to be really imperative for programs to be affordable, to be supportive, to show that you'll get an ROI, a positive return on your investment. ACE doctoral programs are less than $24,000,
Oh, wow.
and we've got really good data and evidence to show that students are getting a positive return on their investment. And I think that's going to be really important for all institutions, you know, at the doctoral level and otherwise, just to demonstrate that the time and certainly the money that students are putting in, that they're getting good value and good return on that.
Totally. And I think too, something that, I mean, especially for ACE, can really help kind of attest to the quality of the program is those completion rates, right?
Mhm.
If you were to compare ACE to some of your peer institutions, I would imagine based on the level of support you've put into place that those doctoral completion rates would be significantly higher.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
just because you've laser focused in on making that possible for students.
Yeah, exactly. And just to circle back, because I mentioned about the return on the investment, and I think that's really, I've seen some institution I that the tuition is just seeming it's just outrageous.
Mhm.
And it's not to say that for some students they won't get good value and good return on their investment, but particularly, I mean, can you imagine if you're paying some of these tuition and you're not making it through? If you're ABD, just as an example, you've invested all this money, all this time, and then you haven't graduated. We just did a study at ACE, and we determined that for every dollar a student invests in their education, they receive $19.20 of additional lifetime earnings.
Wow.
So it's an annual return rate of over of 120%. So it's those types of outcomes that are, I think, really powerful, of course, really positive. And so I think it's going to be really necessary for institutions to demonstrate that type of value, because, and the good news is students have choices, and that's the beauty of online too, is that there's just way more choice, and hopefully the competition will bring out the best in institutions and what they can offer and provide to students.
Totally. There's way more choice now. I know that people always like to say, we're not a business, we're an education. But at the end of the day, there are some business like qualities in which we must take into consideration. ROI is one of them, right? That's not a traditional education favorite buzzword.
I think we can be both, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Totally. And I think at ACE, you guys have found a really good balance. Again, just by genuine people who care about the students. Your leadership team is amazing. The people are amazing. And I think, when my kids started elementary school and I went in and I wanted to be a parent volunteer, and they're like, why do you want to do this? And I'm like, I think if the teachers feel respected and cared for and loved, it's just going to trickle down to the students,
Yeah.
which ultimately is my kid. And I think ACE is evident of that, right? You guys have created this amazing culture with your people, and that just trickles right on down to the students.
I think that's certainly true of ACE, and I give our leadership team and our HR team just an immense amount of credit, and we're really clear about our mission, and our student centeredness, and no, well, and I appreciate everything you're saying about ACE, because it's true. I feel it's a great place to work.
It's true. I mean, I feel it and I don't work there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was recently talking to someone and I was like, I think every person I talk to at ACE is genuinely really happy and really likes the culture. And I don't think they're just saying it, because some of the people I know personally, and they're not the type of people who would
Yeah.
sugarcoat things
Yeah. Or
or
sometimes
hide
you
it.
can tell, if it's not entirely genuine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I am also on the other side of that too. I've been doing a lot of research in like online communities where students live, like Discord, Reddit, even
Hmm.
Rate My Professor, Facebook.
Yeah.
And again, ACE, from the student side, there's just not a lot of grumbles. A lot of other online colleges,
Yeah.
there's many complaints,
Yeah.
problems with the model. Similarly, on the student side, ACE
Yeah.
doesn't have the large complaints.
No.
It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
No, it's wonderful, and I think our faculty and staff were really proactive. I, I've seen, and I've been at other institutions. I've seen where it might be more reactive, where it's like you sense a problem, or if a student's not persisting, it kind of gets to a point, and then it's almost kind of too late. Our faculty, I don't speak for again, the doc research faculty administrative team. They're really proactive. And so it's like at the first inkling of the student struggling, or this faculty member struggling, or something's not quite going the way we would otherwise want it to, try to intervene, and provide support early on. Try to, and oftentimes that works. That's effective, and yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like that is a big contribution to success right there is just being able to intervene early and have faculty who are aware of the dangers and the warning signs and who care enough because there are institutions where even when the system is set up, the faculty still don't maybe sound the alarms of, hey, we need to intervene here. And so then it gets to the end of the course and the student's going to fail or it's going to go to a grade appeal or, all the other variables.
Yeah.
I think having faculty who care enough to say, we need to intervene here, and then having a leadership team on the other side of that who pays attention. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
a all hands on deck type situation.
Yeah. We
You
have
guys have it.
there's a cool thing that ACE does called impressions. So basically, you can go into our platform and leave a note for someone, and their supervisor sees it as well. So someone might go in and say, Nicole, I just want to say thank you for the support you provided my student. He was feeling really frustrated about, um, the experience he had, and the support and encouragement you provided him just was invaluable. So I wanted to say thank you. Or, Nicole, thank you so much for your collaboration on this project. But it's just a great way
Yeah.
to give acknowledgement and praise, and also the supervisors get to see it as well. And that's one of my favorite parts of my day is when I log in and I see those, and my team getting kudos for the great work that they do.
I love that. I love that. That's like culture of care right there, right?
Right.
Like you are
Yeah.
really saying like I see you caring for our students and I appreciate it. Um that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
we're kind of at the end here, but I want to thank you so much, Eric. This has been fun. I think there's still so much more to learn and explore when it comes to doctoral students and just how we
Yeah.
can support them. I think we're just at like the very, very beginning of online doctoral.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, thank you again for having me. And yeah, I certainly look forward to hearing more about your experience. And let's connect again. Hopefully, yeah, I'll see you at the next OLC, and maybe we can do this
Y-
in person.
Totally, yeah, let's do it. And I mean, again, I'm keeping my eyes on ACE. I just think it's a good model. I love watching the new partnerships form. What feels like every single day on my LinkedIn feed. It's like here's ACE,
Yeah.
there's partnerships, there's new. So I love watching you guys grow and the people there. Again, we personally know some of the people there just from past lives and just a good group of
Yeah.
people. So yes, I'm keeping my eye on you and let's do this at OLC in Nashville.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks,
Eric.
Nicole. This is awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.